Would you still be as righteously upset? And I had to justify that in my own heart. And I had to reconcile in my own heart. And I had to deal with issues in my own heart. And I couldn't do this. I couldn't say, I don't have prejudices. I don't have these issues because I'm a Christian. I couldn't hide behind my Bible and my church pews and say, I'm fine. That's everybody else in the world that has to reconcile their heart. I had to look so deep in my heart through prayer and through deep thinking to rectify my own heart. And then when I started to rectify my own heart, I started to speak about it and preach about it. And I hear people say, wow, that made me look in my own heart. I miss that. That's something I need to do in my own spirit. And then somebody else would say, man, that is good stuff. I need to. And then people would call me and say, well, what do you think? I said, well, this, and this. Man, that's good. I'm going to chew on that. And now I'm on the radio or I'm on the podcast with you. And you're saying there's 4, 5, or 6 people. How many people you said? There's several people that need to hear this. Well, I never would have had something intellectual or something worth saying or worth hearing if I didn't do the deep introspection into my own heart the day I saw that video. So it's not a small thing to rectify your own heart, because now you have something that moves you that'll move other people when you speak it. You won't be a echo or parrot. You'll have your own voice and energy and passion and power, and people will be moved by it. And I think more than people will be moved by it, God will be moved by it. And that's more than enough. Even now, talking to you, I'm getting even more stirred up in my own heart, my spirit.
America has this gift that what is happening there has an impact across the globe. And we've seen here in London the impact of the presidential election. And you also mentioned George Floyd. Well, the entire world fell with that. And you are correct. Now more than ever, we need to look into our hearts and pray for wisdom and for peace around us. And I just remember a quote that I think goes hand in hand with my next question, something in the lines of, reading gives us some place to go where we have to stay where we are. Just want to ask you very quickly if you have a few books that stay with you over the years, a few books that you kind of go back to.
Number one, Knowledge of the Holy. I think it's the best book a Christian, outside of the Bible, that a Christian could have. I think Knowledge of the Holy by A.W. Tozer is so life-giving, and something I'll be reading for the rest of my life in terms of life-changing. So Knowledge of the Holy is number one. And I think there's a bunch of other books that I can say, but there's some Carol Thompson books that aren't necessarily mainstream, and manuals that have just changed my life. The Possess the Land book, Order of Righteousness.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Really. Oh, man, I don't even know where that book is. I have to go find it. But The Order of Righteousness, in my opinion, is, I didn't even know we could be righteous. No, I'm sorry. The book is You Can Be Righteous. That's the book. It's called the book You Can Be Righteous. The Order of Righteousness is kind of the class of the idea that
I had to take the class. The Order of Righteousness. Like, I know the book, but it was the class by Carol Thompson.
Yeah. And that idea. The idea that you can be righteous. Wow, really? And it's really, really been helpful to me. There's several other books, but The Bait of Satan, John Bevere. Also, The Fear of the Lord, John Bevere. Good grief. Such a great book. Here's another one that I mean, you asked for 2 books. I'm sorry. These other books that I mentioned are like 2, A, B, C, and D, but I'll just mention one more. Martin Luther King has a series of sermons that were collected, and it's called The Strength to Love. And they just took several of his sermons and made it into there. And so amazing, just really, really good. And the idea that he was trying to practice these things in the time, and eventually knowing that he would be murdered. And his idea was love and loving your neighbor. It's quite powerful. So there you go.
That's good. Do you have any other titles? We can have 2 more.
I could keep going. Yeah. I'm reading a book that I'll never understand or I'll never get done. It's a huge book. Dr. Carroll gave it to me. It's called The Existence and the Knowledge of God, and I have to read it with a dictionary. But books like that just really have so much weight. I think that one's, you talk about a book that's going to be with me forever and ever. It's a good one. Why Revival Tarries is a really good book. That's Leonard Ravenhill, who I've really come to really like over the years. So Why Revival Tarries is a really good book. Of course, The Spiritual Man by Watchman Nee is a really good book too, on understanding the mind, body, spirit connection, or the body, soul, and spirit. And that he writes so eloquently as well. And there's other books as well, but those are ones that really have moved me and really have kind of changed the course of my thinking. The Knowledge of the Holy, big time. And there's some more. I would name, I have this rule, and I did it earlier with John Bevere, but I have this rule that I don't, and the reason I'm not spouting off books is that I try not to quote or stand behind preachers that are still alive.
Okay.
Because there's this ability to be controversial. So you quote a guy and you say, man, I really like this guy, and 2 weeks later he's very controversial, and now you're defending his controversy or whatever the case is. And dead guys don't usually get into controversy because they don't tend to do anything new. So so anyway, I'm trying to be very careful on some of the alive guys that I quote, but I did quote John Bevere, who's magnificent. I think his writings are really good.
That is so good. And it's funny too you said that, because I'm thinking the same with people that I asked to come on my podcast.
I know it.
I'm like, God, they're so amazing, and I feel so inspired by them, but please keep them holy, and please keep them on the right path, and so forth. Okay, what's next, Derrick?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm trying to work on or trying to get done. One, the biggest project is being a good husband and raising children that will be kind and they'll be kind and loving and valued members of the society that we have, and also be kingdom minded and populate heaven. So that's a big project. It's a big project. I've been blessed with kids that I really like and I enjoy. That's the biggest project that I have. But I do these videos. I've just started this, and I'm releasing them every week, and they're called For Us Dads. And the only reason I do them is because I just hope to encourage some dad out there just to, you're doing a good job, keep going, whatever the case is. And I had a guy watch one of the videos and said it was something that encouraged him. And I thought, man, that's it. That's why, even if it's one person. So I'm releasing these weekly videos. Of course, I have Grace Talks and a podcast that I do. That's a long form conversation just like this. And I will have you on. I'd love to have you on. I do Grace Prayers, which you were on.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your podcast, by the way.
That's right. That's right. So Grace Prayers is 15 minutes of just helping people increase their prayer life. I started doing during the pandemic because I just felt like we have a lot of extra time. We need to be praying. So if I can engage or help people to increase their prayer life and maybe even have a Bible study without them knowing it, because we pray over scriptures. Like here's a theme, praying that God would bless our president. Well, here's 3 verses or a verse in the Bible that we're going to pray. And so it's also like an interactive Bible study that you're focusing on prayer. So you don't even realize that you're learning the Bible or studying the Bible. I also do a podcast with a ministry called Isaiah 661. That's primary purpose is to help equip people to raise children with trauma, particularly for adopted or foster care parents. And so I do 3 podcasts right now and releasing these For Us Dad videos. And you talked about me being a published author. I have a book called The Heart of the Son, and I'm getting ready to write a second edition to that book to go into more detail and talk about some of the things in the book, and even a 10-year perspective. Like I think I wrote that in 2012 or so. I'm not very good at dates, as I've said in this episode, but I think I wrote it 2012 or 2013. And so 10 years later, what is the perspective now? What have I learned now that I'm a father? How does that deal with me in talking about having a heart of a son? And so we're going to rewrite that book. I'm also still preaching, pastoring at Grace Christian Fellowship, and traveling some. and ready to do ministry and do it with my family. So there's some projects. Those are things that are keeping us busy.
That's incredible. And the world is a much better place because of you and because of what you do and because of your yes to God. And we're all blessed with your work in one word. Yeah. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.